If you're not making mistakes, then you're doing absolutely nothing. Actually, John Wooden said, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm positive a doer makes mistakes. Those wise words from John Wooden, celebrated basketball coach, and great mentor to many player on his team. Even John Maxwell, the number one leadership guru of our time, learned quite a bit at the hand of John Wooden in their conversations and their time together. Actually, John had a long list of questions to ask John. John Wooden said, "Put that down. I want to learn from you." So John Wooden was a great had great understanding of who and what people were, the value they bring, the stories, the shared experiences, the lessons that they had. Leaders do love mistakes, not because of the mistake, but because they are going to learn from those mistakes. They're going to be able to take those mistakes and ponder them and reflect on them and say, okay, what happened? What was going to be as a result of this? And why didn't it happen? Why didn't it get to where I expected? Many of the great things in our life have come as a result of a mistake. Now 3M, with these little post-it note things, didn't really think about that, but they were looking for a different solution, how to make a quick adhesive, and then they came together with, hey, what if I applied this to paper? And boom. It just became a huge windfall for 3M for the fact that you could take that piece of paper, and we got used to using these pieces of paper and sticking them up instead of using tape on walls and windows and everything. We could just paste the picture, paste a note somewhere. We could paste our drawings. We could do a 28-day challenge and put up all the notes on the wall here and say, yes, I want to remember all these things. These are the important I am statements, or these are why I am, what I am, who I am. I don't know about you, but long before I knew much about mistakes, I did know about this little pencil here. A lot of school time with a pencil. A lot of time with this eraser. I don't know about you, but the eraser kind of became my friend. And isn't this the true element of what John Wooden was talking about? A doer makes mistakes, because if you didn't start writing, you wouldn't have made that mistake. You wouldn't need the eraser, right? You wouldn't even need the pencil. How many times that I've been, when I was first learning how to use this little instrument, I was whacking on that nail, trying to hit it into a piece of wood as a young boy, and I would hit it in the wrong place and it would bend over. And, I learned from my dad, okay, this is the right way to hit the nail. And then if it doesn't quite go right, if you start seeing it going askew, then, you use this end of this is the mistake end. This is the part that gets you out of trouble. This gets you into trouble, doesn't it? Yes. Hi, Lisa, welcome. So, whether it's the pencil, whether it's the hammer, whether it's something else in our life, we do have mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are painful. Some of them are very, catastrophic. Sometimes when we lose focus, and that's what happens sometimes, is we lose focus on what we are doing and a mistake happens. Well, it only stays a mistake as long as you don't learn from it. The best things in life come as a result of learning, come as a result of taking time to understand what happened, what was planned, and why didn't the two match. John Wooden, I would hazard to say, there were many games where certain things didn't happen that were planned. You anticipate certain moves and being able to throw the ball or, pass the ball to another player and make the shot. and sometimes those get away and you don't have a good game. Sometimes, we mess around with the bushes in the garden, and we get it overgrown because we put the wrong plant in. We thought it was going to be, my dad used to have rose bushes. He had like 150 rose bushes around the house, in some in their own gardens, some along the house, some it makes me want to sing with a hammer. Yeah. When we go and had those rose bushes, some were very small and would be subjected to the animals coming by and gnawing them. So we then had to put baskets around those particular ones that were especially tasty to rabbits or squirrels or whatever was drilling in. And of course, then there were the ants or the bugs that were boring through the stalks, and so a lot of chemical time. And as a result, you learn a lot about rose bushes that way. You learn about what sunshine they need, what watering they need to bring the best blooms. Sometimes this one rose bush was right on the side of the house, right by my window. Every year we would prune it back in the fall, and by the time the summer came up, the rose bush was up above the window, putting out blooms. And that my dad would tell me that plant was never supposed to be that big. It was only meant to be like 1.5 feet, maybe 2 foot tall, and yet it would go 4, 5, 6 feet by the time summer was over. So mistakes happen in nature, mistakes happen in what we cause, but if we don't really understand that and take time to figure out why did the mistake happen, how can we avoid it, or how can we leverage it to go to a higher point? Not always are mistakes bad, and they can actually lead to greater success than we originally thought. Now, I'm not saying leaders love mistakes just to make mistakes. Leaders love mistakes because then it tells us that the team is working. There may be some tweaks that need to be done, but sometimes we have only a half-baked idea. As we talked about a couple days ago, we have half-baked ideas. We don't have time to generate them inside of a lab and then just send them out. Even when they're fully baked inside of a lab, there's still things that can go wrong. Sometimes when we think about the engineering ideas that we have for putting together the iPhone or, any smartphone, is a replaceable battery better than an integrated battery that you can't replace, that you have to send off? As a consumer, I would say, I'd love a replaceable battery because then I can have a spare and I can just, if I'm on a long trip and I don't have a charger with me, I can just flip the batteries and go. When we are tied to the outlet, we tend to be limited. So I would rather have the mistake of a replaceable versus the integrated versus the closed case that I can't get into. Each has its purposes, but within our teams, why do we have mistakes? Well, there's sometimes a lack of communication. Yes, mistakes can propel us forward. We do win. Sometimes we learn, though. Sometimes that team, whether it's your family, again, whether it's your work team, whether it's a community team, what's happening? Why are mistakes happening? Because there's a lack of communication. And communication is key. Communication between two people or between the team members so that they understand the vision, that they're, the leaders out there drawing this framework and hopefully able to use, some crayons here and, color in that particular vision so that people can see, okay, is this what we're aiming for? What are we aiming for? What are the things that we need to do to get there once we understand that? So yes, communication is a key factor and often is the reason why we create mistakes. Also, focus, mental strength, mental agility. Are we, when we drive down the road, are we, uh, paying attention to the conditions around us? And here we have a highway I-4 that if you don't pay attention, you're liable to get into an accident in the clearest weather ever. I understand when we were driving up in Wisconsin or Michigan with icy roads or rain-slicked roads that, there might be oil from the various trucks and stuff that have passed by, and, cars that are leaking oil, and you might go sliding off because of a little water on some oil-slicked roads. But here in dry conditions, you can see the worst accidents ever. It's because we lack focus at times. And why is the focus? Because we're diverted with the phone or conversation in the car, or we don't anticipate what looking beyond. So at the apex, looking at how do we drive more effectively? How do we make sure that we transit from one place to another in the most effective way without getting there in an ambulance or whatever, or being stranded somewhere? We lose focus. We need to have that focus. We need to be able to gain that focus within our lives and then move forward towards that dream, towards that goal that we have, whether it's, again, the family goal of getting out to walk along a path that has been on the bucket list to walk together, or whether it's a long walk of 30 days on the road, away from work, away from everything, because it's an adventure, or just going on a vacation trip, right? So what happens? Sometimes people, you hear, lose their wallet or is stolen because why? They're not keeping a focus. They're not keeping awareness of the current conditions. So presence, being able to be present in the moment, being focused, having the right communication with people to make sure that mistakes are lessened. But we're human, and some things are out of our control and will cause mistakes. Some things on the opposite team, if we're playing basketball or baseball or some other sport, we'll do something that's unanticipated, and as a result, a mistake happens. Like, in baseball, how many wild pitches have you seen that aren't intentionally thrown? But, we're anticipating the runner is going to stay at first, and instead the pitch is thrown to the plate, and the catcher now has to go to second because there's a steal attempt underway. And sometimes that ball doesn't quite get out of the hand of the catcher just right, and either it'll bounce or will go straight into the runner's head or into the runner's body, and careen off and, cause more problems. So, those mistakes can be costly. Those mistakes can be life-changing. So what is it that we're doing? What mistake are you looking to make today? Because we can learn from it. Sometimes we need to get and make a mistake. We are on a path. This morning on Eric Reed's video, he talked about what are the 1 to 2 mistakes that you had in the last 6 months. Something that didn't go right, but you can learn from. And and looking forward, what is the 1 to 2 mistakes that you think you need to change up your life, to pivot, to get to that success level that you need to get towards that goal? Sometimes we do need to intentionally make mistakes and not be so tied into the path that we have of doing this every day in a certain order, in a certain method, because the method isn't leading us to where we need. And we need that mistake to happen so that it draws our attention to a better path, or draws our attention to learn why something wasn't being accomplished, and then we need to move forward doing something different. Today I'll wear a dark shirt so that I'm changed up and thinking different. I know several baseball players who said, what's your secret to success? How come you've had so many outings in a row, especially a pitcher, And he'll say, well, I've worn the same underwear every time. I've eaten the same foods. I've gone through the same practice. I've done the same routine, basically, for that game. And when I do that, I have success. When I don't do that, when I change it up and say instead of, 3 burgers and 2 hot dogs, I have an octopus sandwich. I don't have that success. I don't have that energy. I don't have that confidence. And it's not so much the routine; it's the confidence that gives them the better chance of being focused and delivering to the plate if they're a pitcher, or helping the team. The team is doing the same things together because yesterday it worked and the day before it worked and they had success, and they feel if they continue that streak, they'll have success until they don't. But sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes taking the same path, but at some point, you'll need to change. Some point, you do need to intentionally make a mistake. Well, it may not be a mistake if it's intentional, but it may be a mistake because you are planning one thing. You're planning to take a risk. So sometimes when we take a risk, we are going to do something different than we normally do. And that's why we end up with a mistake. We do something that we don't intend because we're going to take a risk and see what happens. So I think where Eric was going with that, Lisa, is really take a risk. There's something additionally out there that is just important, and it's okay if it happens because we have an eraser, and we can try a different path. The road from here to there is paved not only with intention and intentionality, it's also paved with the possibility for mistakes and for things to happen out of our control or in our control. And we have to say, okay, stop this path that we are going to go up and change it and go down a different way to get there. How many times, if you take your GPS on your phone, I use Waze or Google Maps, and then you go and say, okay, I want to go take this route from here to there. Oops, there's an accident. When you get on the road and you're starting to see there's an accident a quarter mile ahead or a half mile ahead, and it's going 4 miles an hour in a 70-mile zone, you're going to be in there for a while, especially when it tells you like 19 minutes or 30 minutes backup. We were on this the other day, and on I-4, there was an accident. There were 2 accidents, actually. One was a result of the other. Somebody lost focus of what they were doing and trying to divert at the last minute to go down the exit ramp, and they ended up in a result of an accident of their own. But we saw on the ways that this map was showing this 19 to 30 minute backup, traffic barely moving, maybe up to 4 miles an hour, but it was stop and go. And Waze actually told us go down the exit ramp, go through the light, and go back up the entrance ramp to the highway. And sure enough, we bypassed the accident and kept on going and saved ourselves at least 15 minutes. 15, maybe 20 minutes compared to other cars who were leaking through one at a time because everybody's got to look, right? So what happens on the road? We do this every day. What happens on the road? We stop and we look at oh my, look at the accident. Look at the car wreckage. And for me, I can see it from afar. I don't have to stop and look and then go because I'm going to get hit because somebody else is not focused. So keep driving, right? It's okay. There's people attending to those. You're not going to do anything by looking other than to cause more chaos. So stay on the road, look forward, be present in the moment of what's going around you, but keep on driving. Yes, it's important to slow down to allow emergency workers not to be fearing for their lives, but you don't have to get down to a stop, a complete stop in 2 lanes over all you're doing is causing more chaos. So make the mistake and you'll learn from it. If you do, it's a good thing. If you don't, it's not. John Wooden, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm positive a doer makes mistakes. Be a doer. Make mistakes. Take the risk to get to your goal, to get to your dream, to get to the apex of the mountain, and to get above, and to go further, and to realize the potential that is within you. It's going to be messy. You'll need your eraser. And if that doesn't work, sometimes you might need the hammer and take out, that claw and straighten out that nail and then hammer it in. Have a great day. We'll talk tomorrow. Enjoy the day. Make a mistake, but learn from it. Okay? Take care now. Bye.